Hi guys, Darth Deuces here, back with another Star Wars Black Series action figure review. Today, taking a look at the Star Wars The Black Series Deluxe NED-B from the Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus show. A figure that I wasn't sure was actually going to release this year, because on a lot of websites they were saying this guy was going to come out to like early spring of next year. But went into GameStop and they had a few of these on the pegs, so yeah, I decided to pick him up. He's one of those characters that I didn't pre-order. I just would gonna leave it up to fate, kind of. If I saw it in stores, I'd pick it up, and if I never found it in stores, I wouldn't be too bothered. Nibby's cool and all, don't get me wrong. I just was never. He's not like a huge priority for me to have in the collection, but he was at the store, so I decided to pick him up. And I think there's a show packaging for Black Series figures, but I decided to show this one because I think this is the first Black Series figure I picked up that's using the new plastic-free packaging. So I just kind of wanted to showcase that a little bit. I know a lot of people are very kind of 50-50 on this packaging. For me personally, it doesn't bother me too much because I'm an opener. I open pretty much all my figures. I don't care so much for the most part that I don't see the figure. I would be nice if you could, so you can check paint apps and all that, because we all know quality control can be iffy at times. I can definitely see how this packaging isn't appealing to mint and box collectors, because I feel like it kind of defeats the entire purpose of collecting unless you collect solely to resell. But I think it looks fine. The image they use on the front's okay. It is an edited image of the figure, so it can be a little misleading, I would say. But it's got the same kind of like style images on the side that they've been doing for a while. And on the back, you get that same image, a little write-up. And on the side, you get this kind of cool, kind of just vanilla pose, and shows all the stuff that comes with and all that. I do kind of like this, and it even tells you how tall it is. I think that's kind of a cool little feature of the packaging. But yeah, I don't love this packaging by any means, but it's not really like the end of the world or anything like that. But that's all I really have to say about that. So yeah, put it on the side. We will take a look at the actual figure now. And he's pretty cool. Worth Deluxe price point. I think at this point we can all say that I don't think any of Hasbro's Black Series Deluxes have been worth the price point. But I think NED-B is definitely one of the better Deluxes because he is at least pretty much 100% new mold, and got a decent amount of stuff going for him. But yeah, take a look at him. There's a small amount of assembly required for him. You do have to put his backpack thingy on. I guess you could maybe consider an accessory. I don't really. I'm pretty sure it's just supposed to be part of his torso. For whatever reason, they just make you have to put it on instead. And you gotta attach these little tubes into the side. But yeah, the figure looks really good. Like I said, 100% new sculpt for the actual figure itself. I think he looks pretty cool. I really like that construction worker kind of droid look. I think it looks pretty nice. And the figure itself looks great. The yellow used here for most of them is a pretty bright yellow. It's a brighter yellow than we saw on the show, but the show does use a fair amount of filters. So it is possible maybe NED-B's actually supposed to look this yellow. It doesn't really bother me, but just an observation. Sculpt and detail looks really nice. I really like the head sculpt. And you'll see all over the figure, or not all over, but in most places you have some bit of weathering and grime and whatnot on the figure to make him look like he's been through doing his construction stuff, been through a fair amount of elements and whatnot, which is pretty cool. My only real complaint is that there's just some spots on the figure that are just devoid of any weathering. Like on the top of his head, it's completely clean pretty much, which is really weird. There's almost no weathering on his back besides a little bit on the backpack and the butt plate. Aside from that, the legs and the back of the arms are pretty much completely clean, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. We've seen them do that on figures before. It's very weird. I don't know why they do that. But it is a minor kind of complaint I have with the figure. But all the details there. He does have these really tiny little like antennae post things on his mouthpiece area, which are made of soft plastic, luckily, so you shouldn't have to really worry about that breaking or anything. The eyes are painted pretty well. He's got this nice venting. Even some nice sculpt detail in the actual joints themselves. It's a little hard to see, but there is like wiring sculpted on the joints, which I think is pretty cool. In the midsection, and the hip joints also have some wiring and pistons and whatnot. All of his main joints are that same sort of circular joint with the clear middle piece that we've seen on a lot of the Disney, almost most of the Disney era droids in some form, which I'll do some comparisons with other figures in a little bit. But yeah, he's got some blue. I do like the little light flashes of blue. He's got these blue Orbesh writing and this little blue circle around his collar, which looks pretty nice and breaks up the yellow a bit. Some more of that writing on the back as well. Feet look good, bulky and heavy duty looking. I like that. Some silver paint down there. Yeah, pretty good looking figure. Not a whole lot to say. I think it does the part pretty well. I would have liked to seen some more weathering on places, so it looks a little more natural. But overall, it's pretty good. And even the surface sculpt as good as well as the plating, like the yellow parts. They're not just a flat sculpt. There is actually a textured sculpt to make it look like it's beat up and worn, which I really like a lot. Very subtle little dings all over the chassis, which I think is really cool. In terms of articulation, he's got kind of the standard articulation that you would expect from a Black Series figure. You have a double dumbbell joint in the neck, but because of the way the neck's sculpted, you're just not getting a ton of movement. You'll get rotation fine enough, a bit of pivot, not really much up and not really much down. The up gets blocked by the upper part of his collar, and then the down gets blocked by this like little piece on his neck here. So not a ton of up and down movement on his head, unfortunately. Shoulders can rotate. They have a single hinge there, which go out. These shoulder pads are like the new Stormtrooper mold shoulder pads, where they're sandwiched in between the joints, so they'll move with the rotating of the arm, which is really nice. He doesn't have a swivel at the bicep, but he does have two swivel joints at the elbow, at each point, the bicep and the forearm. So there's that. Single hinge that goes a little shy of 90. I think they could have put a bit more of a bend in there, but it's not too bad. It gets most of the pose I'd want. And he has rotations at the wrist with in and out hinges at the wrist as well. Ball joint at the torso, crunches forward just a little bit, back not too much because the backpack gets in the way. It does allow for rotation and a bit of pivot though. Hinges at the hips, move out about that far before like the legs kind of start getting in the way. They kick forward a decent amount. There is a rotation hidden there, inside there. They engineered that pretty well. It's kind of tight, but yeah. And then single hinges in the knees, move about 90. Swivels at both points here at the knee. And then hinges at the ankle. They move up a decent amount, down a fair amount, and they pivot pretty well. So pretty decent articulation. It is pretty much the standard. I don't think there's anything too special about the articulation, but you can get them in pretty much, I'd say, most of the poses you'd want to. He wasn't doing anything too dynamic. He was kind of just like standing around from what I remember. But yeah, in terms of accessories, you've already seen them. He's been holding them. He does come with his hammer, which is very cool. Is sculpted pretty nicely and has some nice paint. You got the silver or the gray gunmetal for the hammer part and the mechanical bits. You've got brown for the handle and black for the grip. And he holds it best in his right hand, which is kind of in this angled holding pose. He also comes with a battle droid blaster, which is just sculpted in this gunmetal color, but it looks good enough. Same blaster we've seen in multiple battle droids, and he does hold it best in his right hand. You can get these two fingers into the trigger, or the trigger grip, or the handle grip, and he holds it fine. It's a little awkward looking, I'll be honest, but it works good enough. So that's pretty much it for the figure itself. I guess lastly, we'll just do some comparisons here. NED-B, he is a bit bulkier and a little taller than your average Black Series 6-inch figure, but he's not massive or anything like that. I guess case in point, I have on hand the Mayfeld with the Stormtrooper arm, or the tank armor, and you can see he is a bit taller and he's a bit bulkier. He's not like super massive or anything like that. But comparing him with some other droids released, some of them recently, pretty recently, and others not so much, but here is like K2SO. They use kind of that same joint style. You can see K2SO is a little taller and NED-B is a bit bulkier. And here is the recent security droid release from The Mandalorian. And they all kind of share those similarities in design with those circular joints, but they all have their own differences, which I like. I think that's kind of cool. They got kind of like developed similarly, but made for their each specific task, which I think is pretty cool. Here's another Mando droid. Here he is with Zero. Zero has a version of those joints on his legs there. And then a more recent release, the Deluxe Dark Trooper. You can see they're close to the same size and height. I have him crouched. If you have him standing up, he'd be about the same height. And then I don't actually have any of the Obi-Wan Kenobis from Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm kind of waiting to see when I get them on sale. So the only other Obi-Wan Kenobi character I have on hand here. Here's the third sister. I can't even remember if they're interact with each other in the show or not. I've only watched the show through once. But yeah, overall, I think NED-B is a pretty cool figure. Do I think he's an essential part of a Black Series collection? No. I would probably only get this guy if you're collecting all the Obi-Wan Kenobi show figures, or you just like cool droid designs. Then he is a cool droid. And he is, I think, a relatively important character to get if you collect the Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff. If you don't care about different droids, you don't care about collecting the Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff, then I think this guy can't be an easy pass. It's a good figure, though. Worth the deluxe price point. And I don't think any of the, be honest, I don't think any of the deluxe figures have been really worth their price point. But I think this one is one of the better done ones because at least it is pretty much all new sculpt and is done relatively well and has a decent amount of paint apps for the most part. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next one. May the Force be with you.